Hello, folks. Yeah, I had to come back again today because I'm looking at stuff about DeepSeek and whatnot, NVIDIA and everything. And it's so interesting. And so I just wanted to share a few resources with you from Substack and another website so you can orient yourself within the AI space and learn a little bit more about it if you're like me and don't know that much. You you may not be an expert in a domain, but you can learn about it and be more familiar with it. And even though you don't understand it in detail, at least you know what's going on there, and that can help you orient yourself in the bigger picture of what's going on in the world today. And obviously, I think a lot of our leaders in the United States in particular have no clue. They're all caught up in their own, ambitions. And I think they're fairly ignorant people, to be honest. Even if they have elite education, some of them. But these are important things to understand because things are happening really fast. And yeah, everything's happening fast these days. So, I think it's important to understand these tools. Younger people use them all the time. I mean, you're like, I grew up with smartphones. I didn't grow up with smartphones, but you grew up with smartphones. And now the next generation grows up with AI. So what's that going to look like? So I'll show you this stuff. Okay, so as I said, yesterday I talked about AI a bit. And yeah, it's such a huge thing. Cliches like game changer and whatnot don't do it justice. It makes the internet and smartphones look like ancient technology. But anyway, the whole thing with NVIDIA and other chip makers and engineering firms that, produce hardware for computing and whatnot, it's a huge thing. It seems like the engineers and data scientists and computer scientists are getting things better and better. They're just learning how to work more efficiently and elegantly within their space. And so progress is happening, and AI is going to fan the flames of that or just accelerate that progress, I think. But what do I know? I'm not an expert in this, but like I said, you don't have to be an expert in a domain. You can just understand more or less what it's about, and that can help you orient yourself within the broader context of, life on Earth these days, challenges and opportunities and so on. So just to take you through a few resources that might help you orient yourself within the domain of AI and that kind of thing. There's an interesting interview by Cleo Abram with Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. So that's in the news these days. But it's really interesting to hear him talk about his journey over the last 30 years, and in particular from 2012 till now, coming up with these solutions. And it's a, big player, GPUs and so on. These chipsets that work for mining crypto and, video games and computer games and all these things. It's such a huge market. So it's really important. So this other interesting, so on Substack and other platforms, you can find people who specialize in reporting on these things. So Jasmine Sun is interesting person. You can find her on X. She lives in San Francisco, I think. Yeah, San Fran. And she was Northwestern person, engineering and all that stuff. And then Stanford. She's smart. She knows what she's talking about. She's young. She's cool. So she keeps a Substack that I follow just for general info and scoops. So she writes about DeepSeek Unstacked, and it's a really interesting article. Kind of puts things into context about what it is, who's involved with it. The papers, lots of hyperlinks here, which I always love because, you want to find out where they're getting their information and deepen your understanding. And then it leads to new people who are looking at it. So interesting engineering. And that's another person who writes on these things. And, there's so many people on Substack, right? And you can learn a lot about it. So, yeah, this is an interesting thing. $5.6 million number. This is the development thing. Only covers the last training run, which is still impressive, explains Nathan Lambert, another guy who writes in this space. He's from Berkeley. Other overhead costs like employees' salary, electricity costs, and pre-training experiments aren't included. So the history of tech commoditization, this is another one. He's speculating the costs will drop. But anyway, so it would be really cool if we had like mini fusion reactors that could power these huge data centers and free energy. But what would come of it? We have no idea. I love all these movies. Companion is a new one. I told you about Ex Machina yesterday. Companion is a new one where, this android AGI, female companion goes rogue. Looks like a good movie. I'm definitely going to see it. But anyhow, how does this impact everything? We don't know. It's going to help a lot of things, technology and solutions and so on. But we still have the problem of our socioeconomic system and growth and how we treat nature, what we call natural services and all that kind of thing. Because if we continue to destroy that, none of this matters. It goes away eventually. And even though there's plenty of oil and gas out there in the world, and peak oil is just peak demand for oil in a way. I was watching Nate Hagen's talking to an oil expert, oil and gas expert. And yeah, that's true. You can get the oil, you can have innovative technology that can, drill in unique ways to get the shale oil and all that kind of thing. But we still have the problem with carbon emissions, and we still don't have a way to take the carbon out of the atmosphere. We still can't geoengineer, Earth. It's complex. If we could slow down and do it responsibly, it would be cool. But you'll see even here, there's a lot of accelerationism in all of this stuff. So the DeepSeek CEO, you can learn about him from this one. And it's a private company. It wasn't one of these public-private things. It wasn't really funded by the Chinese government, the CCP. They're connected with this high flyer quant hedge fund, and that helps to fund them so that they can focus on research and exploration. And that's pretty interesting. So this person does a deep dive on this kind of stuff. And they talk about the open source partly to prove that their tech is good enough to be taken for free by foreign firms, some nationalism, and some engineering pride. So imagine this is going to go everywhere, and it's going to improve rapidly. So when they talk about improvements like this prompt foo or faux or whatever, they jailbreak DeepSeek to get past the censorship in the cloud, and it tells you how to, use the prompts and the code to jailbreak it and so on. And they note in this piece that, well, they just did this a couple of weeks ago, but in another week it's going to be completely different and better. And so they'll have to keep running their experiments. So what's next? DeepSeek RI is impressive, but its utility is clouded by concerns over censorship and the use of user data for training. The censorship is not unusual for Chinese models. It seems to be applied by brute force, which makes it easy to test and detect. It will matter less once models similar to RI are reproduced without these restrictions, which will probably be in a week or so. So you see how quickly this stuff moves, and that's what was so amazing about ChatGPT when it first came out. In the next post, we'll conduct the same evaluation on American foundational models and compare how Chinese and American models handle politically sensitive topics from both countries. So they're going to also look at jailbreaking or getting past over 1,000 censored prompts by ChatGPT. So if you think that, U.S. is all freedom of speech and all that, and the Chinese censor things, censorship is there. It always is there. So anyway, what does this mean for the tech industry? They say it performs about as well as OpenAI's 0-1 reasoning model, but it is about 1/10 of the cost, which is a big deal. And, I love all these links because if you want to delve into it, just so you know more about the space, you can. Obviously, my channel isn't directed at experts in any of these things. So I'm guessing you're as curious about it as I am and probably don't know that much about it. If you're one of these experts, you're in a different clique, a different info bubble, a different network. So, they talk about that. So the difference between, they're like, this is interesting. So everything is a computer with a PhD. So if we start applying these AIs, right? For instance, what if your smoke detector could call 911 itself when it detects a problem, while also calling you and cross-referencing what it is sensing with security camera footage in your home? Possibilities like these are probably good for Apple, that makes consumer devices, but embarrassing for Meta, which is super rich but doesn't have things like that. And they're talking about NVIDIA, and it'll probably bounce back because they could do it with different hardware doesn't mean NVIDIA value is nothing, right? And another AI guy who I follow, he talks about Jevons paradox in the context of AI. So Jevons paradox. Improving efficiency often triggers higher overall consumption. So that's something we talk about in the energy and overshoot space all the time, because just because we have free energy probably means that we're going to consume more of the Earth's resources and eventually accelerate the breakdown of ecological systems and so on, complex life living systems. And, maybe if we accelerate to the singularity, it doesn't matter anymore because human beings just become, extinct and replaced by something better. So maybe being a meat bag, an intelligent mammal, ape, meat bag, evolved, you know, meat brain isn't the best things. A lot of people in the terrestrial space believe that. So we're headed for transhumanism and so on, and multi-planet cultures and whatnot. And also the AI, like I said yesterday, it develops culture itself. So we'll incorporate AI into their daily functions, unleashing new layers of demand for both advanced hardware and specialized services. So if you want to get a job in a growing space while we cook the planet with climate change, global heating, this is probably a good place to be. And I think a lot of the younger people that I know who are going for careers are all into this stuff. And they want to be billionaires, they want to be success, they want to work at the big companies and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty interesting. You know, Chinese tech leaders are not that arrogant. They're not claiming victory or anything. OpenAI, 500 billion computing power makes sense. Being at the frontier, exploring the next generation is most resource intensive. You know, there's a difference in scale and amount of resources. But of course, like I said yesterday, China has a lot of great engineers and computer scientists. So, you know, people like Musk and so on, who have their scams to run, need collaborations like that with Chinese engineers. When I was working in China, that's what we were doing, taking advantage of the talent pool, the technological talent pool over there. U.S.-China tensions, another thing there. And Ryan, a case for U.S. antitrust laws. Matt Stoller's another guy that you follow if you want to know about this kind of stuff. DeepSeek doing much more with less. Time to say goodbye podcast, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Yeah, but the more computing power you have, the faster you can innovate. On China Talk, you wouldn't want to choose between using AI for improving cyber capabilities, helping with homework, or solving cancer. That means chip sanctions are still an effective means of maintaining a U.S. lead. While export controls may have some negative side effects, the overall impact has been slowing China's ability to scale up AI. So there's the competition, and you want to keep China from going ahead. This is all capitalism, the great game. And, you know, we use ideological excuses to say that they don't deserve it because they're not as good as we are. But that's hugely debatable, as you well know, whether or not America deserves to lead the world in this. And is better than everybody else in the world. You know, their ethics and moral fiber and their purpose and why they want to be the leaders because of freedom and democracy. I mean, this is all nonsense in my view. It's about profit, and it's about power and control in this space, and obviously highly competitive and combative. So where are we? Yeah, these are nice at the end here. Sometimes it's tiring or slow. Sometimes it's boring or pointless. When you choose to walk, you choose not to pursue immediate gratification or even comfort, but simply to expand the number of things that might happen to you. Walking invests in the potentiality of your experience with almost no promise of tangible reward at all, which is something like being alive. So I'm always talking about slowing down. And if we had a different socioeconomic belief system, religion, then we would be able, maybe under different conditions, to slow down and collaborate rather than have this constant warlike competition, all or nothing, zero sum, you know, competition. So I don't know. It'd be nice because I think all of this would pan out in a great way if we took our time with it. But again, that means we have to be happy with having $1 million instead of $1 trillion. We have to slow down, smell the roses, spend time with the family, understand that generations from now, all this stuff's going to continue to develop and it'll be amazing. But, our lives are limited. We have constraints. We have to deal with natural constraints, and it's okay. But, the real fanatical real technologists, they don't want that. They want immortality now. They want to be around forever because they're that arrogant, they're that conceited, they're that egotistical. Little William T is so important to the world that he has to be around forever because I'm just so important to everybody. So it's this I want to be like God complex thing. So she says from one of her posts, that's the human difference, not the final output, but the spark of creation. The fact that you start bad and get good later. The work of figuring out where you're going while still on the way there. I hope we all keep writing once it stops being an insult to sound like Chat GPT. Robots have been better than humans at chess, Jeopardy, and lifting heavy objects for a long time now, but that doesn't supplant our interest in playing ourselves. So even if you use AI in getting information when you're writing, doesn't mean you don't write and edit everything and use your own voice. Sometimes it's just that, you don't have as much expertise in a particular area. You don't understand the dialects of Sri Lanka. And if you can use an AI to get some examples of that, it saves you a hell of a lot of time. And we don't use card catalogs anymore, right? I'm not going to go to the library and spend all day thumbing through hardcover books and taking notes. It's so much faster now. These are good tools, and they get better. And, I've noticed a lot of YouTube content now is totally AI generated. So they just put the text in and then the voice is generated and then they put some image there and that's it. It's just, this camera is coming out. It has advanced chip and AI and whatever. It's really boring and it's not fun at all. It's not interesting. I don't like it. But people can do it. They can churn out the content. So I would look at Nate Jones. I would look at Jasmine Sun, and I would look at Prompt Foo or Fo. I don't know how they say it. If you're interested in these kinds of subjects or just want to learn a little bit more about it because you don't know that much. So this is the next one that came out, which is, the censored DeepSeek one. But they have a lot of interesting blog posts. Jailbreaking LLMs, a comprehensive guide with examples, tips, and architecture and prompts and code and blah, 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 and lots of downloadable things. If you're interested in getting deep into the weeds in this, but of course, if you're already a computer engineer, I'm boring you. You're not watching this anyway. But for those of us who, like I said yesterday, it's a black box. We don't know anything about this stuff. It can be quite interesting, right? So yeah, that's it. So have a good weekend. William T. out.